Alright, what's going on, everybody? It's been Monkey coming back at you once again. And today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End by Chuck Wendig. This is one of the books where it's probably the less said the better. But let's get into it anyway. If you were to ask me to describe what this book is like, I would say it's Star Wars meets Mad Max Fury Road meets Dune. But you might hear that, you say to yourself, "Oh wow, that's pretty good." I like those franchises. This might be right up my alley. But I gotta warn you, it takes the worst parts of each of them and sort of makes one shitty book meatball. Like previous books in this series, this book is divided into multiple parts. We got 5 main parts plus a prologue and an epilogue, and the parts are as follows. Part one is the characters. We're getting back in touch with the characters, and they're finding their way to the planet Jakku, where they see that the Empire is there in full force. Part two of the book is all about certain characters who are on Jakku, escaping capture from Jakku, and other characters planning to rescue the characters that are on Jakku. Part three might be the worst part of the book. It's a it's like a it's a cringe mission where like characters are going undercover. I'll cover it more later on in the book and the review. Part four, finally, is what we're all here for. The war kicks off. This is the big battle, Jakku. We've heard about it all this time. I mean, what's gonna go down? And of course, part five, the end of the Empire. And of course, the prologue is Gallius Rax at Endor receiving orders from the Emperor, and the prologue is the formation of the foundation of the First Order. Really great stuff. Now, normally when I would do these reviews, I would try to structure it in a way where I start off with things that I would like, then I'll go into things that I would dislike. But when it comes to this book in particular, I don't really like anything. So I'm just going to skip that part and jump right into the dislikes. Strap in. The first thing that I disliked about this book, surprisingly for me, is the characters. That was sort of like the one saving grace of the previous two books in this trilogy. Is like I really like the character of Sinjir. I like Jas. John Burrell. He was, although a Captain Price ripoff. I like Captain Price, so therefore I'm gonna like John Burrell. It's just how it goes. But this book, managed to take these characters and just whittle them down to they were just unlikable. I mean, Sinjir, who spent like the last two books being like comedy relief, he's the ex Imperial who likes his liquor, and that's all he cares about is when is he gonna get his next drink. But of course, he has like a heart of gold or whatever. He's always there to save his friends. But in this book, all he does is piss him on about his boyfriend, Condor Kyle. Oh, Condor, why did I ever leave you, Condor? Oh, whatever. He's starting to sound like Ray Sloan, pining after Adia in the previous two books. And so it's like, I don't know about this Sinjir. He was my favorite character, but I just can't get behind this mopey ass Sinjir. Jas, for the most part, she's still like that strong, independent bounty hunter. She goes through some stuff here in this book. She probably has the single best scene in the novel that I'll touch on a little bit later. But still, like, she doesn't get a lot of page time, and she's kind of a shell of her former self. John Burrell, I'll touch on that later. Temmin, Snap Wexley. In these books, he doesn't really do anything for me. He doesn't really do anything for me in general. Like, there's nothing much there. Just a whiny kid. And in this book, in the beginning, he's, I'll touch on it. And of course, we got the main protagonist, supposedly, Nora Wexley, who was at her all-time insufferable in this book. You won't believe it. You thought she was bad before? Oh, just read this one. And of course, everybody's favorite, the greatest Imperial to ever Imperial, Rae Sloane. Praise her. She is here in this book. And, well. Yeah, so anyway, the book starts off on the planet Terrace. Nora and her crew, they're tracking down bounty hunter Mercurial Swift so they could get the information that he has about the location of Rae Sloane. And I like the opening of the book. I thought it was a hot open. I like the planet Terrace from the old expanded universe and how, the city was half destroyed. So it kind of makes you wonder, is a Nice Yellow Republic, is that still canon in Disney? Who even knows? But, yeah, so it starts off hot. They capture the bounty hunter. They get the information out of him. And they head straight to Jakku. And it's here, when they get to Jakku, that's where the book starts to fall apart. Because Nora, she sees all the Star Destroyers in orbit above the planet. And she pretty much figures out, the whole Empire is here. This is it. Rae Sloane's down there on the planet, so I got to get down there. Because she beat my ass in the worst fist fight in Star Wars history, the last book. So I got to make up for my failure. Let me go down there. So Nora, in all her big brain wisdom, she decides she's going to hop into an escape pod. Well, before she can launch it, Jasamari, the bounty hunter, she catches up to her and she's like, Nora, what are you doing? And Nora's all like, I got to finish this fight. And Jas is like, well, I'm coming with you for some reason. And so they go down into the escape pod. And Sinjir and Temmin, they jump into hyperspace and they go back to Chandrila to alert the New Republic that, hey, the Imperial forces are amassing on Jakku. And so, it's all well and good. Temmin, he's freaking out because his mom took the escape pod, down to Jakku, and she's there all by herself. Well, he doesn't know that Jas went with her at this point. And so they go to Han Solo's house, and Han Solo there, he's just a big goof. Leia's pregnant, so he goes to the store and buys all these, space oranges. And Leia's like, did you buy anything else? He's like, no, I just bought these because I'm Han Solo and I'm wacky. I don't know what to do. You're pregnant. Ooh. It's just goofy. So anyway, Temmin and Sinjir, they tell Leia about the Empire, and Leia's like, oh, I gotta go tell the Chancellor. And while Leia's away, Temmin, he's crying like a baby, and Sinjir is like, Han, you owe us one from that business back on Kashyyyk. And so Han Solo, he's like, damn it, I do owe you one. So they come up with this whole plan about how they're going to take the Millennium Falcon, and they're going to rush the Imperial blockade, and they're going to go down on Jakku, and they're going to do all this stuff, only for them to not do it. It's like, wow, I would like to have read that book. That sounds like Star Wars to me. But instead, what we got... So anyway, all of a sudden, it's election year in Star Wars, Mon Mothma, she's got a rival senator who's going to go up against her for this chancellor seat. And, of course, wouldn't you know it, politics is just going to drag everything down. Leia goes to Mon Mothma with the information. Well, actually, Mon Mothma comes to Leia's house. And they tell her all about the Imperials amassing on Jakku. And she's like, oh, we got to bring this to the Senate. We got to have a vote before we could just go to war and finish the fight that we started all those years ago. And so, Temmin's like, no, we're going to go without you. And she orders them, don't do it. And they don't, right? His mom's over there stranded on Jakku. And Temmin is just following the rules all of a sudden. What a joke. And so anyway, like I said, it's an election year. And they're going to have a vote to decide whether or not to send the New Republic fleet to Jakku. And of course, the vote fails. Oh my God. The drama, right? And they find out they're only short by 5 votes. And the 5 votes they need are senators close to Mon Mothma's rival for the seat of the Chancellor, right? So this is where, the worst part of the book comes in, where Han Solo and, Temmin and Sinjir and Condor Kyle, Loverboy, and John Burrell, they all go undercover at, this, they're moving from Chandrila to some other planet that I forget, the seat of the Chancellor, because they just keep moving it around, so it's not in one place. And so everybody's there, they're gathered, and they're going undercover, finding out why do these people vote against finishing the fight. Doesn't make sense. And, well, it turns out that, oh, the Black Sun gang has their family members captured or whatever. And it's just, political corruption here, day one. And, Condor Kyle, just, he's just so good at his job as a splicer or whatever. He finds out, the villains, and he's just getting beat up. His face is just getting pummeled, and Sinjir's all in a rage because his lover boy is like, oh, Condor, why you gotta be so brave? It's just the worst part of the book. I bought this book wanting the Battle of Jakku, and this is what I get. So anyway, while all this is going on Transrilla and elsewhere on the planet Jakku, of course, Nora Wexley and Jas Amari, they get captured by Imperials. But because Jas has a bounty on her, they send Jas to Nima the Hutt, whereas Nora gets thrown into an Imperial prison camp. And we're supposed to care, right? We're supposed to care about Nora, the plight of Nora Wexley. She's in this camp, she's working hard. Everybody around her is, delirious and delusional. They've been, under the sun so long. The desert has stripped them of, like, any moisture they had. And, oh, poor Nora. It gets so bad for her that she starts hallucinating, right? And she hallucinates her son, and she hallucinates, I think, Wedge. And then she hallucinates Mr. Bones, and oh, it's just too bad it's just an illusion, right? A hallucination. No, it turns out to be the real Mr. Bones, and he comes to save her because, Temin sent Mr. Bones in an escape pod down to Jakku before they flew away. Here's Mr. Bones saving the day. Only he gets destroyed. The Imperials see him, they kill him, destroy him right in front of Nora, right in front of her cell. Oh, the despair. Oh, the drama. What is she going to do? I'm sure all you Nora fans out there were waiting with bated breath. Mr. Bones somehow puts himself back together. The indestructible Mr. Bones, right? And he wipes out the Imperial encampment and he rescues Nora. And oh, she's never been happier to see Bones in her life. And so they scurry off into the desert like rats. Meanwhile, in Nima the Hutt's compound, Jas Amari has probably what is like the best scene of the novel, where she's in prison. The bounty hunter Mercurial Swift comes after her. He wants to collect on that bounty, and so he goes to get her, and she's all in like handcuffs or whatever. Or maybe no, they make a point. It's just rope. Jakku is so backwards, so non-technological. They're using rope instead of binders or whatever. And so, Mercurial Swift, he's talking all this shit about, oh, I got you now, Jas. You should have done what you did to me on Taris. And unbeknownst to him, Jas, who is a female Zabrak, and the Zabraks are known for, like, their horns on their head, right? Think Darth Maul, but it's a little bit different for the female species, anyway. She had broken off her horns, and she, like, uses them to cut her rope, and she, like, sticks them in between, like, her fingers, like some Wolverine claws, and she just beats the shit out of Mercurial Swift. And that's how she escapes, right? She steals his ship and she flies off. And as she's flying off, she just happens to pick up Nora Wexley. And oh, they're reunited. But meanwhile, while all this is going on Jakku, Ray Sloan, who arrived at Jakku at the end of the last book, looking for Gallius Rax, who was from Jakku, she's having a hard time with herself. She's exiled from the Empire, her empire, and she's palling around with Brenton Wexley, who's Nora's husband, who she escaped from Chandrilla with in the previous novel. And they're on Jakku, they're suffering, and we're supposed to care, but we just don't because it's Ray Sloan. And she's at Nima the Hutt's compound, and she's like, I need to get to the forbidden part of the planet where Gallius Rax is, and Nima the Hutt. She's like this emaciated Hutt, so think worm. Here we go with like the Dune stuff, right? And she has all these crazy fanatic followers that have like lost their minds. Think the Goofies from Mad Max, right? And so Ray Sloan's like, I'll make you a deal, Nema. I forget what the deal is, but Nema agrees to take Rey to the forbidden part of the planet, only if Nema could accompany Rey Sloane. And so they go off. And so it's here while they're walking across the desert where Gallius Rax turns the turbo lasers on them and starts shooting them. But of course, Rey Sloane, she gets behind some rocks, and Nema the Hutt gets behind some other rocks. And the turbo lasers are blasted them, and they're pinned down. But oh, here comes, Nora and Jas and the stolen spaceship, and they park up on a cliff, and they're looking through the binoculars, and they're like, oh, that's Rey Sloane down there. But wait, that's my husband. What's my husband doing with Rey Sloane? Oh, the drama. And so you could probably see where this is going. But yeah, it's going to be that Nora Wexley, Rey Sloane team up that we all didn't want to see. But we're getting it right here in Empire's End. Great stuff. So while all that is going down, Han Solo and the crew, they find out who or like why those guys didn't vote to continue the war effort. So they have another election or whatever, or vote, and it passes this time. And so the New Republic is off to war. Admiral Akbar, they send the fleet over there to Jakku, and of course the Empire's waiting for them. And the biggest battle, the decisive battle, the final battle ensues. Or does it? Because it's really only like a couple chapters. Disappointing. And so you'll never guess how the decisive battle is won. If you were a fan of the Holdo maneuver in Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, you are going to love this. So there's this ship that's critically damaged, and it's going to sacrifice itself. It's already like being pulled into the gravity well of Jakku. So what it does is it turns the tractor beam onto the big Imperial capital ship, which, you're thinking, what a joke, right? But what happens is the tractor beam is so strong that it pulls the Super Star Destroyer, Ravager, out of orbit and down onto the planet of Jakku, thus ending the battle. If only the Empire had known that tractor beams were so powerful, they might have used them to win every battle. What a joke. It's like, this is how it happens? A tractor beam pulls down the capital ship? That the New Republic fleet had no chance of hitting it with the lasers or destroying it traditionally. You had to come up with some dumb-ass way. The tractor beam to pull it down into orbit so you could take out the most powerful ship that the Empire had remaining, thus effectively ending the battle. Because then, all the other Star Destroyers, they start to, jump into hyperspace, and that's how we get, stuff like the Mandalorian with whoever the Imperial is with the Mandalorian, I forget his name. But, they start to scatter like roaches, and the battle's over. The Empire's done. But, of course, there'll still be still a battle being fought down on the ground by our heroes, Rey Sloane and Nora Wexley. And so, they get to the compound there, and Gallius Rax, he's got them captured or whatever, and he's gloating about his great plan to start the First Order, and how this whole battle of Jakku was never about winning, it was about destroying the Empire, because Palpatine's orders was that because the Empire allowed Palpatine to die, therefore the Empire should not be allowed to exist. And he's going to start a new one in the unknown regions, right? So the Battle of Jakku was one big feint or whatever to get all the Imperials in one place just to get them destroyed by the New Republic. It's what? And, Chucky does this with these books a lot. Like the first book, the whole Imperial Summit was a joke. And then the second book, what was going on in that one? Well, it doesn't matter, but it's like the bait and switch, right? It's you think one thing and it's oh no, we mean to lose this battle because we're about to go to the unknown regions where the real Empire is going to be, right? It's come on. So anyway, Nora and Rey Sloane, that is, they defeat Gallius Rax and Junpei Tashu, the guy who smeared shit all over his walls in the previous book. They defeat them, and they stop the destruction of the planet Jakku, because apparently this is like a special Sith planet, and Gallius Rax was gonna throw like a Sith holocron down into the planet's core and detonate the planet, taking out the Imperials and I guess the New Republic with him. But he's really hoping to get those Imperials. And of course, Ray Sloan, she beats Gallius Rax in a fist fight, and she shoots him in his legs, and his arms, and his shoulder. Just kills him. Just so much for Gallius. And Nora at this point has a blaster to Sloan, and she's like, "I'm going to take you in." But then she has a change of heart, and she lets Ray go. And Ray Sloan gets in the ship and jumps off into hyperspace into the unknown regions, and starts the First Order. Isn't that great? And Nora, she gets picked up by Jasamari, and she survives, and all's well that ends well. Yeah, so like I touched on earlier, the characters in this book really didn't do it for me. Sinjir, who was my favorite character coming out of the previous two books, he's just a shell of his former self here. In the beginning of the book, he's the one who's most gung-ho about going to Jakku, and rescuing Nora and helping Temmin and doing the right thing. But he's the one character that doesn't even go to the Battle of Jakku, because he takes a job with Mon Mothma as her advisor, just so he can stay on planet with his boyfriend. Wow. And Temmin, he wanted it really badly to go to Jakku. He was going to defy, Mon Mothma. He was going to fly there himself or whatever. He was guilting Wedge into, reforming, Phantom Squadron or whatever, flying out there illegally. But of course, he decides that he's going to play by the rules, and they have to have multiple votes. And meanwhile, his mom could be dead, but whatever. He's going to follow the rules now all of a sudden. And so he goes to Jakku with Wedge and Phantom Squadron when they finally get the green light. And of course, he's overwhelmed. He can't really fly an X-Wing at this point. And it's just whatever. The character of John Barrell, this is supposed to be like an emotional moment of the book. He comes back he's living on Chandrila now, so he could try to be close to Jess, but she doesn't really want anything to do with him. And, he goes to the New Republic, the troopers, and he's like, "I'm coming with you." And they're like, "No, you're not. You're no longer with us." And he's like, "I'm coming with you if I have to fight each and every one of you to get a spot on this, troop transport." And so the trooper lets him in, because I guess she used to serve under him or whatever. But she's like, "Yo, once we get to Jakku, you're on your own." And he's like, "Good deal." And that's the last we hear about John Barrell. And you're like, wow, this is a random chapter. Well, it turns out later in the book, Jasamari, she's going to his apartment to see him. And it turns out he died off page. And it's like, we couldn't have at least, well, I guess we do get to see it, because the trooper who's there cleaning out his apartment has like a video of the battle, and he sacrifices himself because the troop transports are coming in, and they got a missile lock on him from the Empire, and so he jumps out the bay into the missile, so if the missile doesn't hit the troop transport. Like a stupid death, right? And it's supposed to be like emotionally impacting, but it's just not. And so much for John Barrell. I never really liked Nora or Ray Sloan. You guys know this if you watched my previous videos. And in this book, I feel like they were just at their most insufferable. And the fact that they teamed up is really just... And that Nora lets Ray go because, she's the main antagonist of this trilogy, whether you like it or not. I know they tried to pass the torch to Gallius Rax, but it's really Ray. It's really her book. She gets a lot of page time. And they just let her go at the end. Why? Why? What is it these days with their... Like, you're no longer able to have villains anymore. The bad guys are always misunderstood. And at the end, the heroes, they come to understand them and just let them go. There's no consequences for her being part of the Empire. Nobody really answers for the Empire in this. The Empire just ends here, I guess, at the Battle of Jakku, and they let her go off to the unknown regions to start off the First Order. It's just, when you think about it, like, what even is this trilogy? What happens? Stuff happens, but like, what? Nothing seems to stick. It's a waste of time. I want to take a moment here to touch on Gallius Rax himself, who I never really liked from the beginning, and his whole character arc is one that I don't like. If you ever played the video game Force Unleashed, and there was that part where Darth Vader finds like this secret Jedi kid and he raises him in secret, and he becomes Star Killer later on, and all that stuff. Well, that's basically Gallius Rax here, only the Emperor finds him on Jakku, and he gives him a mission, and then like 10 years later, the Emperor comes back, and he's like, you completed your mission, Rax. Come join the Empire. And so then Rax does that, and he joins the Empire, but he's all kept off to the side because I guess Palpatine views him as like a son, and that's why he becomes the contingency plan, and Palpatine, confides in him, like, oh, if I were to die, do this, go here, start the First Order, whatever. And it's just, I just never liked the idea of like Darth Vader raising a secret son. So I'm not gonna like Palpatine raising a secret son either. It's just, I don't know, I just didn't like it. Didn't care for the character. He went out like a bitch. Not a real threat. But what can you expect from Disney Star Wars? Also, the interludes, while in the previous two novels, they were sort of like highlights, in the sneak peeks around the galaxy. In this book, they really wore out their welcome, because you kind of knew they weren't really going anywhere. While you did have some that connected back to the previous novel interludes, these ones, they seem to be like longer, page count wise to me. I was like flipping through, like, oh, 5 more pages of this, really? And of course, there's probably the most famous interlude, the Jar Jar one, where Chuck Wendig literally turns Jar Jar into a clown. Jar Jar, he gets hated on, you know, both in the real world here and in the Star Wars universe for the role that he played in the Rise of the Empire and Fall of the Republic, all that stuff. So nobody likes Jar Jar, and he goes around on Naboo. Everybody's hating on him, and he like tries to cheer up kids as a clown. It's like, I mean, did you really have to go there? I mean, I know there's a lot of Jar Jar hate out there, but sad clown, really? Yeah. So if you couldn't tell, really didn't like this book. It's definitely the worst of the Aftermath trilogy. I don't know the timeline here, but I know like Chuck Wendig was like fired from Disney Star Wars under some controversy. I don't know if that attributed to this book or not. I try not to look it up because I didn't want spoilers, believe it or not. So I doubt they fired him for his performance on this book, but it's like, I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and give this one Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End by Chuck Wendig 2 out of 5. It's the worst of the trilogy, and I don't know. Like I said, the less said, the better about this one. If you read the other two, I guess you might as well read this one. But you'll wish you hadn't. So until next time, I'll see you there.